True North is an original podcast by Due North PR. We do everything we can to ensure that everything we broadcast is fair and factual, but the opinions expressed and statements made by our guests are theirs and theirs alone. These opinions and statements do not reflect the views or opinions of our presenters, Due North PR, or the podcast itself. You're listening to True North, a regular roundup of business and community news and developments in Northland. Hello, and welcome to True North. Thank you for taking the time to listen. It's Wednesday, the 11th of June. I'm Peter Heath. On the show ahead,
rural and provincial New Zealand gets funded to a lower class of investment in their roads. The more we up our game economically, the more we strive for success, the more money will come through, and we will see that in a better quality of network.
I speak with District Councillor Anne Court, one of the most clued up people in Northland on the vexed issue of our historically woeful road network. First though, a look at what's happening in business and community news across our region. Northland exporters now have another option to ship their products directly to Australia or to ports in the South Island. Move Oceans, the shipping division of freight and logistics specialist Move Logistics Group, has introduced a monthly breakbulk Trans-Tasman service linking Northport with Nelson, Dunedin and Bluff, with Brisbane and Port Alma in Queensland, and with Tasmania's Bell Bay. The first call is scheduled to take place tomorrow, Thursday the 12th of June. The route is serviced by the 9,000-tonne general cargo vessel Brio Faith. This can carry a mix of containers, breakbulk, flat racks and oversized project cargo, making it a good fit for the diverse freight needs of the Northland region. The multi-purpose vessel has capacity for 630 containers and is equipped with its own cranes, offering Northport customers more choice and greater control over their supply chains. Staying with the transportation theme, Stuff NZ reports that regional airline Barrier Air is enjoying considerable support from Northlanders. It's been operating a Kaitaia Auckland service for years, ever since Air New Zealand scrapped its Kaitaia service, prompting then Regional Economic Development Minister Shane Jones to criticise then Air New Zealand CEO Christopher Luxon and to warn Mr. Luxon to stay out of politics. Yes. Well. Anywho, in August last year, Barrier Air went head-to-head with Air New Zealand on the Kerikeri-Auckland route, apparently selling 8,000 seats on that service in the first 8 months, a number that Barrier Air CEO Grant Bacon aims to double by May next year. The airline has also increased services into Kaitaia with additional capacity on Fridays and Sundays, with 34 weekly flights now in and out of the town. Now, we need to make clear that we recorded this interview way back in March. In it, we explore the decision by Northland's local and regional government to get rid of their coordinated approach on roading, managed by the Northland Transportation Alliance, and bring their own individual roading responsibilities back in-house. Interestingly, since Anne and I spoke in March, one of those councils, the Far North District Council, is now exploring outsourcing that roading function again. It's enough to make your head spin. The Northland Transportation Alliance was created in 2016 to coordinate roading projects between Northland councils, develop a single Northland voice in interactions with the NZ Transport Agency, and, to some extent, help realise and exploit economies of scale. In the middle of last year, it was killed off by all of the Northland councils, regional and district. But was this a sensible move? What benefits did the NTA offer that we must now live without? With council infrastructure budgets stretched to their very limits, what's the downside of once again looking to individual councils to properly fund, maintain and expand our crumbling roading infrastructure? What's the upside? It's entirely possible that our guest today, Far North District Councillor Anne Court, knows more about the twists and turns of Northland's roading landscape than any living being. Hi Anne, and thanks for joining us on True North.
Good morning, Peter. It's lovely to be here.
Look, I think it's clear that what we all hoped the NTA would achieve for Northland, the coordination, efficiencies, economies of scale, they're all reasonably self-explanatory. So
Why was it deemed such a bad idea towards the middle of last year? And where has the winding up of this collaboration left Northland overall?
Now, I'm a huge fan of the NTA. I always was. So the view that I'm going to express to you is my view. It's not the collective view of the four councils. We had recently come off a significant number of weather bombs, 8 in total, including Cyclone Hale and Cyclone Gabriel. Our network was in a parlous state. We had an election and there was a view that the NTA wasn't delivering and that by bringing services back in-house, we would be able to do a better job. Elected members would have closer eyes to what was going on the network, and we would deliver a better result for the customer.
What's it doesn't seem particularly in line with the whole idea of the Northland Mayoral Forum, which is all about closer collaboration between councils, and yet the scrapping of the NTA was almost the antithesis of this. Where's the consistency, Anne?
Well, ultimately, your elected members are Forrest Gump's box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get on each 3-year cycle. And those who 3 years ago felt the NTA was a great model, the current collective thinking of elected members in Northland is that it wasn't delivering. What was amazing about the NTA was we had one voice for Northland, and I cannot emphasise how important that is in Wellington, that when you go down there and you're lobbying for funds, that you're speaking for a population of over 200,000 people. When you go down there as the Far North District Council or Whangarei District Council or Kaipara District Council, you're advocating for your little neck of the woods. You have much greater bang for bucks if you go down there with one voice.
Yeah. So again, what was the thinking about scrapping this unified voice, and where does this leave us? Are we better off? Are we worse off? And if what's the next step? How do we achieve this unified voice in the absence of that individual organisation?
I've held the roading portfolio for a very long time, and what I can tell you is that we've always struggled to get the talent we need up here in Northland in staffing, consultants and professional services in the Far North District Council to run our network. We've always struggled with getting the funding we need up here to manage our network. So the strength of the NTA was that they had the ability to attract from a very large talent pool, the kind of talent that could run the whole of the Northland network. And one really great example is no one council on their own can afford to have a bridge expert or a road safety expert. But by pooling our resources between all four of us, we were able to recruit that kind of talent. And I think ultimately that delivered much better outcomes for Northland. In disbanding the NTA, every council is still going through the process of recruiting to fill the vacancies in-house.
I'm still not sure I understand the logic behind the disbanding. This isn't a big trumpet call for the NTA, by the way. I'm just trying to get to what was the thinking with all of these the benefits.
Okay.
You've outlined the benefits of it really, really well. I'm trying to get to what was the thinking of, what are the benefits of disbanding it?
An independent review was commissioned by some pretty talented individuals who reported back to the individual councils on the benefits of keeping the NTA and the benefits of disbanding the NTA and bringing services back in-house. Now, because that spoke to individual people, I can't elaborate on that. Would not be appropriate. I can only re-emphasise that the view amongst elected members was that it was better to have the services provided in-house by people who were directly answerable and accountable to the elected members of each individual body. And therefore they felt that that would deliver a better service to the customer. I'm sorry, it's a bit of a circular argument. It's probably not the answer I want, Peter, but...
No, I get it. I get it. There were advantages, but councils and councillors in their wisdom saw disadvantages and voted accordingly. So where does that leave us? We've now got a situation where we've got 3 different councils across the region maintaining their own networks and having to fund their own networks and having to staff and find the expertise. Has anybody actually found that expertise that they all thought that they would be able to find?
I can't speak for the other councils in the area, but we're doing quite well. Actually, at the moment, we're punching well above our weight. We've outsourced with an independent engineer to the contract, which has proved extremely beneficial. Concurrently to all of this, though, after years and years of lobbying, we've done extremely well in the latest funding round. So people will be starting to see an improvement in the network. So it's very hard to make a direct correlation between the disbandment of the NTA and improvements that people are currently seeing on the network.
Right, okay. Is local road funding likely to keep up with population growth and usage trends? And if not, what's the answer?
No, it's not. So the way it works at the moment is you pay your road fuel charges, your excise levies at the fuel pump, or your road user charges. That money is pooled in a bank account by the Crown, and the Crown decides how that money gets split out across the country through what they call the government policy statement on land transport. If you had a Labor government, as we had 6 years ago when we were putting the plan together, they said our focus is on walking and cycling, moving people to green energy. We don't want to see investments in roads. Then we had a change to the coalition government and they said, actually all that is out the window now. We want to see an investment in road maintenance. So we had to pivot, and we pivoted very quickly. And at the same time, they increased the funding pool available. So there are 68 road controlling authorities in the country. We're one of them. And every 6 years you make a bid to that bucket of money for how much money you want, in what category, road safety, walking and cycling, road maintenance, bridges. They assess your application and they fund you accordingly. Historically, they've moderated our application down to meet the funding available. This time round, we've done exceptionally well. So we asked for 103 million and we got 97 million over 3 years. That's unprecedented. So we did way better than Taranaki, way better than Tairāwhiti. And that's a recognition of the impacts of the weather bombs, the condition of our network, the size of our district, our challenging geography and geology, and the affordability index of the people that live here to pay their share. And just to give you more context, for every $1 we spend in roads, we get 71 cents out of that bucket of money, and 29 cents comes from the ratepayer. That puts us, along with the Chatham Islands, as the most highly subsidised council in New Zealand. If you're in Whangarei, you're around 50 cents. So we do quite well.
Okay. But even so, what I'm hearing you say is that road funding, even at these enhanced levels, historically enhanced levels, is unlikely to keep up with population growth and usage trends. So something's got to give. Either our roading network is going to fall back again in terms of quality and repair, or stuff isn't going to get done, or something's got to give. What's the answer to ensure that our road network does keep up with population growth and usage trends?
We need a new funding model. So at the moment, we're solely reliant on fuel excise levies and road user charges. We know there's a lot of people aren't paying either of those. The government is topping it up with Crown funds, but that seems to be at the whim of the government on a yearly basis. That's not a sustainable model for any council to plan and fund for how they invest in their road network. For Northland, our roads are more challenging than anywhere else in New Zealand because we're subject to those weather bombs that come down out of the tropics. We have highly frangible soils, so they expand when they're wet, they shrink when they're dry, they crumble. We have restricted access to aggregate. So we face some unique challenges that nobody else, other than perhaps Tairāwhiti, face in the whole of New Zealand. We don't have the beautiful long straights and beautiful aggregate that they have in the South Island. So we have a very challenging network. We have a very dispersed ratepayer grouping. We have 40-odd towns in the far north. We have 39,000 ratepayers, all expecting the network to be maintained to a high level of service, and quite rightly, but we just can't afford it.
So this requires a... Sorry, carry on.
So unless there's a change in the way we fund roads in New Zealand, I suspect that we will see the funding continue to decline.
Okay, so given the fact that central government is squeezed for budget, given the fact that ratepayers aren't likely to suddenly become a little bit more munificent and generous in their compliance with the law, where is this extra funding going to, what's this new funding model going to look like, and what do you think the impact is going to be for businesses? I guess this is a long way of asking, are businesses likely to be asked to make up the difference?
Well, therein lies the challenge, doesn't it? So everybody wants better schools, better hospitals, better roads, but don't ask us to pay any more. And I'm glad I'm not in Wellington making those decisions. But I am here in Northland making those decisions on behalf of the far north people. What I can tell you is that the government has signalled a move to do away with fuel excise duties and put everybody on road user charges. And that means that you pay for your use of the network. There's some challenges in my mind regarding that. We have a very old fleet up here. The technology to do that would be decades in the transformation. That's not a quick fix. It also penalises unfairly, in my mind, people that live in rural New Zealand who have to drive enormous distances but do not have access to alternate mode share. So we don't have public transport, walking and cycling. You're entirely reliant on a vehicle. So there are equity questions to be had, a debate to be had around.
So, yeah, and we're not typically very good at having those. I guess it might be naive to ask, but do you think the eventual solution might revolve around tolling and tolling commercial traffic?
I think we're going to have to be prepared to put more money in if we want the level of service that we aspire to as a country. And that's a really tough conversation right now because economically it's probably the hardest it's ever been in my lifetime. And people are really hurting. So no politician wants to go out there and say, oh, by the way, if you want a better level of service on your network, we're going to ask you to pay a bit more. That's a death sentence for a politician. But those are the real conversations we need to be having.
Yeah, isn't it terrible that we work inside a system where the conversations that need to be had are actively discouraged from being had? It's quite counterproductive in many, many ways. So where are we at with our roading? When you look at Northland's roading network, the council funded roads, not necessarily the state highways, where do you see us going? Are we in a holding pattern? Are we in a pattern of gradual deterioration? Is it a slightly better picture than the ones we've been used to for many years? Are we perhaps looking at a network that's likely to be improved and expanded? Where are we at over the short term, Anne? And what do we need as the business community? What do we need to know and plan for and do to help resolve the situation, if anything?
I think we're in a really good position at the moment. New Zealand Transport Agency, and it's really important to make the distinction between state highways and local roads. So thank you for that prompt. We don't fund state highways. NZTA has recognised in their latest transport plan that Northland is the fastest growing economic zone in New Zealand and therefore requires a little bit of extra consideration. And we're starting to see that come through in their forward planning and thought processes. We also have a government who's recognised how important Northland is to the rest of New Zealand and has made the 4-laning between Northland and the rest of New Zealand a priority, and that's to be applauded and supported. So what the businesses up here can do is get behind that 100% and support it. It's really disappointing to me as a politician when I read the socials to see how many people are quite negative in this space, and I don't want that to be the message they hear in Wellington. They need to hear, this is what we want, this is what we're fighting for, please help us deliver it. And it
But
will
isn't it typically individuals and communities of individuals who are painting that negative investment picture? I've yet to find a business in Northland who isn't 100% behind
you
the
want to
4-laning
check out my
concept. Right?
Facebook page, honey, honestly.
Really?
Oh, this is really going to lose me some votes, but here goes. The green people really need to wake up to the fact that we are not all going to start walking and cycling. It's just not going to happen. So we need to be realistic about what it is that our economy is. And up here, it's agriculture, horticulture, fishing, moving logs, getting to the port. And yes, there's green technology coming, and we should embrace that. But it's not going to happen tomorrow.
What does the Northland business community need to know or understand about the council-funded roads, about our local roads, many of which enable their operations, and what kind of input would it be helpful for councils to have from the business community? Is it helpful? Is that a conversation that should be being had? People like Northland Corporate Group have already been very, very vocal at a national road level. But should we be having these same kind of conversations with local and regional government about our local roads? What's the picture there?
What is happening in Whangarei right now with conversations around the port and the energy precinct and the energy bridge? All of these things will filter through the whole of Northland and deliver great outcomes for everybody. Might not affect the road outside your individual house, but it will affect the backbone, the herringbone that links us all. So we need to be saying, if we support economic growth in Northland, and that raises our GDP and our jobs and our education and our health and all of those other things, that actually changes the hierarchy of which the government prioritises roads and prioritises funding. The way it works at the moment is you're ranked according to your roads are ranked according to their class and function. So you often will read, why does Auckland have wonderful roads and we have rubbish roads? If you really want to experience rubbish roads, try driving to Taranaki or Tairāwhiti or through Ruapehu. We're not an outlier. Rural and provincial New Zealand gets funded to a lower class of investment in their roads. The more we up our game economically, the more we strive for success, the more money will come through, and we will see that in a better quality of network.
Well, that's an incredibly optimistic point on which to leave this conversation, Anne. Thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter.
And that's all for today's programme. Many thanks to Councillor Anne Court. True North will return in 2 weeks' time on the 25th of June, when I'll be asking Paul Linton, head of the region's economic development agency Northland Inc., about what that organisation has been doing by way of securing investment in Northland by investors from outside the region. I'm Peter Heath. Thank you for listening. True North is an original podcast by Due North PR. To support our work and to stay on top of Northland business news and analysis, access the pod on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Please do take that small extra step and subscribe, like, follow, comment, and review, as it helps others find the show. Please also share it with those who may not yet be aware that we exist. As the New Zealand media landscape continues to change, we rely on your support to continue doing what we do. Please let us know what you think about the podcast. Ask questions or make suggestions about topics and people we should feature by emailing us at truenorth@duenorthpr.co.nz. We do read every message.